Hello and welcome to Starting Points, where one thing leads to another. This time, Newton. And I'm going to use this one book. It's a neat book. It's called Men of Mathematics. I'll do something on women mathematicians in a different video. It's by E.T. I like that, E.T. Bell. It's got a equilateral triangle there. It's got a sign of infinity there. And inside, it has write-ups for 30 different famous mathematicians from early times until 1918. So, Newton is going to be in here for sure. And here he is. And the writing that E.T. does about him is 27 pages. So I'm just going to read about 3 pages of it to give you a sense of how he writes, what he writes about, that might make you think, hey, that sounds like it might be interesting. It's an area that I've never maybe gotten into. I had this book probably in high school. It's published in 1937, and high school math, but I never had a call to use it. And so this is great. Who I want to show you, the passage about him is 27 pages long. It's the second longest of the biographies that are included in here by E.T. Chapter 6, On the Seashore, Newton. I do not know what I may appear to the world, but to myself I seem to have been only like a boy playing on the seashore, and diverting myself in now and then finding a smoother pebble or a prettier shell than ordinary, whilst the great ocean of truth lay all undiscovered before me. Such was Isaac Newton's estimate of himself toward the close of his long life. Now, he lived to be 85. That's a long life in the times that he was living. And when he was 24, there was the Great Fire in London. When he was 41, the Ottoman Empire didn't attack England, but they did put a siege to Vienna. It was the second time they'd sieged Vienna. And when he was 50, the Salem witch trials happened. Now, during this time that he lived, there were witch trials and witch hunts in Europe. Isaac Newton, born on Christmas Day, old style dating, 1642, the year of Galileo's death, came of a family of small but independent farmers living in a manor house in the hamlet of Woolsthorpe, about 8 miles south of Grantham in the county of Lincoln, England. His father, also named Isaac, died at the age of 37 before the birth of his son. Newton was a premature child. At birth, he was so frail and puny that two women who'd gone to a neighbor's to get a tonic for the infant expected to find him dead on their return. His mother said he was so undersized at birth that a quart mug could easily have contained all there was of him. Not enough of Newton's ancestry is known to interest students of heredity. His father was described by neighbors as a wild, extravagant, weak man. His mother, Hannah Eiskopf, was thrifty, industrious, and a capable manageress. After her husband's death, Mrs. Newton was recommended as a prospective wife to an old bachelor as an extraordinary good woman. The cautious bachelor, the Reverend Barnabas Smith, of the neighboring parish of North Witham, married the widow on this testimonial. Mrs. Smith left her 3-year-old son to the care of his grandmother. By her second marriage, she had 3 children, none of whom exhibited any remarkable ability. From the property of his mother's second marriage and his father's estate, Newton ultimately acquired an income of about £80 a year, which of course meant much more in the 17th century than it would now. Newton was not one of the great mathematicians who had to contend with poverty. As a child, Newton was not robust and was forced to shun the rough games of boys of his age. Instead of amusing himself in the usual way, Newton invented his own diversions, in which his genius first showed up. It is sometimes said that Newton was not precocious. This may be so true so far as mathematics is concerned, but if it is so in other respects, a new definition of precocity is required. The unsurpassed experimental genius which Newton was to exhibit as an explorer of the mysteries of light is certainly evident in the ingenuity of his boyish amusements. Kites, lanterns to scare the incredulous villagers at night, perfectly constructed mechanical toys which he made entirely by himself and which worked, water wheels, a mill that ground wheat into snowy flour, and a greedy mouse who devoured most of the profits as both miller and motive power. Wood work boxes and toys for his many little girlfriends, drawings, sundials, and a wooden clock that went for himself. Such were some of the things with which this unprecocious boy sought to divert the interests of his playmates into more philosophical channels. In addition to these more noticeable evidences of talent far above the ordinary, Newton read extensively and jotted down all manner of mysterious recipes and out-of-the-way observations in his notebook. To rate such a boy as merely the normal, wholesome lad he appeared to his village friends is to miss the obvious. The earliest part of Newton's education was received in the community village schools of his vicinity. A maternal uncle, the Reverend William Eiskopf, seems to have been the first to recognize that Newton was something unusual. A Cambridge graduate himself, Eiskopf finally persuaded Newton's mother to send her son to Cambridge instead of keeping him at home as she had planned to help with her manage the farm on a return to Woolsthorpe after her husband's death when Newton was 15. Before this, however, Newton had crossed the Rubicon on his own initiative. On his uncle's advice, he'd been sent to Grantham Grammar School. While there, in the lowest form but one, he was tormented by the school bully, who one day kicked Newton in the stomach, causing him such physical pain and mental anguish. Much. Encouraged by one of the schoolmasters, Newton challenged the bully to a fair fight, thrashed him, and, as a final mark of humiliation, rubbed his enemy's cowardly nose on the wall of the church. Phew. Up till this, young Newton had shown no great interest in his lessons. He now set out to prove his head as good as his fist and quickly rose to the distinction of top boy in the school. The headmaster and Uncle Ayscough agreed that Newton was good enough for Cambridge. But the decisive die was thrown when Ayscough caught his nephew reading under a hedge when he was supposed to be helping a farmhand do the marketing. While at Grantham Grammar School, and subsequently while preparing for Cambridge, Newton lodged with a Mr. Clark, the village apothecary. In the apothecary's attic, Newton found a parcel of old books, which he devoured, and in the house generally Clark's stepdaughter, Miss Story, with whom he fell in love, and to whom he became engaged before leaving Woolsthorpe for Cambridge in June 1661 at the age of 19. But although Newton cherished a warm affection for his first and only sweetheart all her life, absence and growing absorption in his work thrust romance into the background, and Newton never married. Miss Story became Mrs. Vincent. Before going on to Newton's student career at Trinity College, we may take a short look at the England of his times. I've already mentioned a few things in other areas that went on, and some of the scientific knowledge to which the young man fell heir. The bullheaded and bigoted Scottish Stuarts had undertaken to rule England according to the divine rights they claimed were invested in them, with the not uncommon result that mere human beings resented the assumption of celestial authority and rebelled against the sublime conceit, the stupidity, and the incompetence of their rulers. Newton grew up in an atmosphere of civil war, political and religious, in which Puritans and Royalists alike impartially looted whatever was needed to keep their ragged armies fighting. Charles I, born in 1600, was beheaded in 1449. Had done everything in his power to suppress Parliament, but in spite of his ruthless extortions and the villainously able backing of his own Star Chamber, through its brilliant perversions of the law and common justice, he was no match for the dour Puritans under Oliver Cromwell, who in his turn was to back his butcheries and his roughshod march over Parliament by an appeal to the divine justice of his holy cause. All this brutality and holy hypocrisy had a most salutary effect on young Newton's character. He grew up with a fierce hatred of tyranny, subterfuge, and oppression. And when King James later sought to repressively in university affairs, the mathematician and natural philosopher did not need to learn that a resolute show of backbone and a united front on the part of those whose liberties are endangered is the most effective defense against a coalition of unscrupulous politicians. He knew it by observation and by instinct. To Newton is attributed the saying, "If I have seen a little further than others, it is because I have stood on the shoulders of giants." He had. Among the tallest of these giants were Descartes, Kepler, and Galileo. From Descartes, Newton inherited analytic geometry, which he found difficult at first. From Kepler, 3 fundamental laws of planetary motion, discovered empirically after 22 years of inhuman calculation. While from Galileo, he acquired the first 2 of the 3 laws of motion, which were to be the cornerstone of his own dynamics. But bricks do not make a building. Newton was the architect of dynamics and celestial mechanics. So, I hope this gives you a little flavor of E.T.'s writing, things that he tries to bring out, and of the times, of the perhaps uniqueness of Newton. Well, thanks for joining me. Until next time, bye for now.